What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Skid Reviews. And I just came back from watching the new Guardians of the Galaxy movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 to be precise. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 is still my favorite comic book superhero movie. It had so much fun, it had awesome music, great visual effects. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 had really high expectations to surpass as far as I am concerned. And did it succeed? Well, in some ways it did, in some ways it didn't. To provide an overview, all I can say is this movie was fun, this was action-packed, the CGI was fantastic, the soundtrack maybe could have been better than the first one. I maybe preferred this, Volume 2, Awesome Mix Volume 2 to Awesome Mix Volume 1. And I loved Awesome Mix Volume 1. I think the character development was done really well for some of the characters. Maybe they could have worked on a little bit on some other characters as well. And the cameos as well, I really liked the cameos, especially Sylvester Stallone. Awesome. And spoilers, you get to see David Hasselhoff as well for a few seconds. That was a really fun moment. Despite there not being any tie-ins, any direct tie-ins with the larger Avengers universe in the MCU, I think this movie did a very good job at tying into, obscure characters from the Marvel comic book universe. There were so many, little references here and there. You get to see you get to see Howard the Duck for a few seconds. And also, if you're hardcore Marvel fans, especially fans of, Marvel storylines which take place in space and characters who move around across the universe, then you need to stay for the end credit scene. There are like 4 or 5 end credit scenes, and they reveal something or someone that if you're a Marvel fan, comic book fan, especially a Marvel comic book space fan, then you need to stay and wait for that reveal. And before I give away any more spoilers, let's just get straight into the review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It's difficult to catch lightning in a bottle twice, and that's exactly what James Gunn tries to do in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Ultimately, Volume 2 isn't as amazing a film as the first and suffers from some pacing issues, but it still proves to be a fun time with a lot of heart. We pick up in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 a few months after the events of the 2014 movie, with the Guardians' reputation now spread across the galaxy. They are heroes for hire and are working a mission for the hilariously conceited Sovereign led by an excellent Elizabeth Debicki as Aisha. Things quickly go awry when Rocket steals some of the items the Guardians were supposed to be protecting, and the team goes to the top of the Sovereign's to-kill list for slighting the golden genetically advanced race. The Guardians trying to stay one step ahead of the Sovereign and the team of Ravagers hired to kill them is the main thrust of the action of Volume 2, and the real heart of this movie is Peter Quill meeting his father at long last. It's established in the first scene that Kurt Russell's Ego is the Starman who impregnated Peter's mother, and it doesn't take long for Ego to show up and introduce himself to his son. The real question is whether Peter meeting his genetic father fills the hole his absence had left in Star-Lord's life, and whether or not that hole had already been filled by people like Yondu, Gamora, and the rest of the Guardians. Family is a big theme in this movie and serves as its unifying plot thread. If the first Guardians of the Galaxy was about bringing the team together, this one is about testing that bond. While Volume 2 does a good job of earning their group arc, the journey there involves splitting up the team for their own personal missions. Gamora and Drax join Peter when he goes off with Ego and Mantis. Rocket and Groot end up paired with Yondu and Nebula. As such, the wonderful chemistry that drove the first film is diminished a little bit. We also learn a lot more about why Nebula has such hatred for Gamora and what went on during their childhood with Thanos, and there's more insight into Drax's relationship with his deceased family. While Peter Quill's lineage is a big focal point, there is time spent exploring how Rocket's creation caused him some major trust issues, and it's even explained where Yondu came from. As the team grapples with the conflicts and personal demons that threaten to tear them apart, their individual stories dominate the movie. That would be fine if each arc was a bit better balanced. But with each of these more isolated story threads comes with a new cast of supporting characters, and it's in trying to flesh them out that Volume 2 starts to get unwieldy. There's Aisha and the Sovereign, Taserface and his Ravagers, another new group of Ravagers, and of course Ego and Mantis. Pom Klementieff is a standout as Mantis, but then so is Debicki as Aisha, and Kurt Russell is as great as you'd hope as Star-Lord's father. All these moving parts cause one to start to lose track of where the main thread of the story is, as the movie gets very dense, and it's problematic that major characters in the third act are absent for big chunks of the second act. The decision to keep those specific characters out of big chunks of the movie might have been to make certain elements of the plot be more of a surprise, but also could have occurred simply because there was trouble balancing the standalone storylines of a bunch of characters people already like. The best thing Volume 2 has going for it is the love we already have for each team member. Coming into this movie, you're rooting for Peter to find the relationship he longs for with his dad, you're livid when Ravagers bully Baby Groot, and you're tickled every time a joke doesn't go over Drax's head. The emotional growth Gamora and Nebula go through as sisters has real weight because we know what came before for them. Rocket's struggle with allowing himself to find acceptance feels like a worthy follow-up to his tragic backstory. Even though the team chemistry isn't there for parts of the movie, splitting everyone does allow each character's arc to grow and build off the foundation of the first movie. But Volume 2 tries too hard to lean into what people loved and responded to in the first film. You thought Baby Groot was adorable in the post-credits of the Guardians of the Galaxy? Here's a dozen more over-the-top cutscenes with him. James Gunn plays into the strengths of his characters but goes a bit too far with some of them. Overusing certain gimmicks makes some of the moments lose their punch. Volume 2 lacks a lot of the effortless charisma of the first go-around because it's trying hard to meet and surpass lofty expectations. That being said, Guardians brings itself together in its third act. Yes, there's yet another massive, almost incomprehensible set-piece battle sequence that is now the staple of superhero movies, but this is one of the most emotional conclusions to a Marvel movie yet. Because these are characters we care about, there are real stakes here across a wide array of heroes, and after keeping everyone apart for a lot of the movie, their reunion and reaffirmed affection for one another feels earned by the end. It also shouldn't be understated that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is as beautiful to look at as the first movie, with its bright, almost psychedelic aesthetic getting some more 1970s influences this time around. Similarly, James Gunn writing the soundtrack into the script makes Awesome Mix Volume 2 impactful just like its predecessor. And it's very smart that he leaned into more obscure hits versus shifting into more well-known pop music. So the soundtrack was awesome. The verdict? Well, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is a fun go-around with characters we love to spend time with. But the second film is far denser and has a few more pacing and story problems than the first. Still, it's a very good movie with one of the most emotionally impactful endings of any Marvel Cinematic Universe story yet. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 does a great job developing its characters and growing them over the course of the story, and does its best to address frequent criticisms of the MCU movies, including throwaway villains and a lack of true consequences. So there you go, what did you guys think of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, if you want to see more content, please do like this video and maybe you can subscribe to this channel, that helps us out a lot. So until next time, I will see ya.